Hola, soy Ellen. Can you help me find the plot? I fear that we've lost it. Do you see the plot somewhere around here? Because I think that we need to find it. So you're not alternative enough for the internet. Like, we've gotten to the point where people are afraid of being perceived as not alternative enough for the internet because unfortunately the subculture has been centralized to the internet, not so much to the club scene and the spaces that cultivated alternative subcultures to begin with. Let's get into it. So, you found it, your thing. You finally found something that makes you feel like you belong, something you can relate to, and you find that there's a whole community of people that is geared towards that. People that bond over shared interests, shared music, clothing, makeup, hair, a multitude of things. And there's a subculture that brings everybody together where we can celebrate that. Except you join in thinking that it's going to be a community and you're being called a poser, you're being called a tryhard, you're being told that you're not enough left and right due to an obscure set of rules that you don't know anything about. You thought that you were just joining something that will bring people together and we could bond over shared interests. But now you got people in your face telling you you're not interested in the things that you're interested in enough to be a valid participant in the thing that you're interested in. And because the subculture has evolved to existing solely in online spaces, you're left feeling left out of something that you didn't even know you had to try to be a part of. You just thought you had to exist. You find your people find you, you combine, and it's cool. Except things get weird.
Whatever that means. It's getting weird.
Why is that?
I understood the assignment. Did the assigner of the assignment understood who they were assigning the assignment to? You have to ask the assigner on that one. Personally, I don't think they did any research.
All right, so this is my third time recording this video. The first time I recorded it, the lighting and everything was off, and so I just deleted the footage. The second time I recorded it, I realized I did not turn my mic on, so you guys probably can't hear me. So that was fun. And then the second time I recorded it, the lighting was off in the first few videos. And then in the last video, like I changed my shirt and my mic was on my other shirt. So you can hear me, but the mic is like all across the room and it was kind of muffled. So this is my third time trying to record this video and I hope that you guys enjoy it. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are below and let's get into this video. Let's talk about how when people call you a poser, you can feel a very specific type of rejection within the subculture because so much of your identity is wrapped up in being alternative, that when people tell you that you're not being real, that you're pretending that you're being fake, it just feels like all the work that you put into yourself has been a lie. Like you're being gaslit and told that you're not real, that you don't fully exist as your true self. So, like, just like let's just take some time to analyze that because what comes across as, just kind of schoolyard bullying actually turns into gatekeeping and purity tests and so many different things that I just feel like a lot of you guys take yourselves way too seriously. The subculture is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a community. It's supposed to be a place where people come together to share different interests, and bond over shared views, shared history, shared experience, and talk about our love of music, talk about our clothing, our hair, our makeup, and offer tips and tricks to help each other out and navigate those things and everything like that. And the community is supposed to be a resource. It's supposed to be a multitude of resources for people not just in terms of, superficial things like hair dye, piercings, or tattoos, but you can use this space to network with people and create genuine connections. Like, one person could own a business and another person could be unemployed. And then there will be one person that's like, hey, if you're looking for a job, you can connect with this person and that person will give you a job. And then you get a job with that person and that person is like, oh, you're working towards this career? You're in school for this? Okay, well, you need to connect with this person. Oh, you're looking to buy a house? Oh, you can connect with this person. Oh, you want to go get your hair done and you're looking for a new hairstylist? Oh, so and so is a hairstylist. Like, you're supposed to be able to use the community as a form of resources and not just it's not just music, it's not just makeup, it's not just aesthetic, but like you can make real connections with people, you can make real friends, you can find your significant others, you can create a second family if you come from a broken home, if you were like in foster care, you don't have connection to your birth family or your foster family, anything like that. It's also a place that is just welcome to marginalized groups of people. Lots of people are disabled, um, neurodivergent in some way, have a multitude of interests, and I feel like it's really sad that we're kind of losing recipes. We're losing receipts. Like, we're losing recipes, we're losing connection, we're losing community because the internet has turned into a cesspool of purity tests and gatekeeping.
Hi, how are you? Back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up. You have a wristband?
No.
Why you can't get in? You need a wristband.
For the free?
No, I'm not gonna mess with you for the free.
Please.
I don't even know you.
Please.
And algorithms and influencers, and I feel like we can do better at coming together to form a more true community. So how did we get here? Subcultures were once havens for people on the outside of mainstream society, and were supposed to be a way for people to come together and create community. But instead, people within the community feel like they're on the outskirts of the community that was created on the outskirts of society. And it's just like, what are we doing? How did we get here? What are we doing? What can be done to fix it or at least alter it in a more positive direction? Because when you're on the internet and you're dealing with people calling you posers and calling you fake and all those things, it's not just a few people. Like, back then, people had magazines, people had like newsletters, radios, flyers. People used to actually print out flyers and print them all around the city. And there would be, secret locations where people knew to go and check in here and there to do this, that, and the third. But now it's bigger than that. It's worldwide. It transcends multiple languages, cultures, and so many different things. It's not just centralized to your local area and print media. So, like, why is the internet highlighting so much negativity and causing real damages for real people to this extent? Like, how do we get here in this era? Well, a lot of people are building identities on the internet. It's no longer a place where you identify as one thing and you're on the internet and you're using the internet as a tool to further connect and unite with other like-minded groups of people. People are building their identity around the internet and allowing the internet to shape their identities. Like, it's backwards now. And I feel like because of that backwardsness, it has become more about public performance than identity and being valid in who you are. And that is where some of the concern for whether or not someone is a poser or not comes from, because it's like, are you a person that is genuinely a part of the subculture and happens to be on the internet? Or are you curating an aesthetic specifically for the internet to try to capitalize off the community that has been created before the internet existed? And a lot of people feel threatened by that. So let's start with the word poser. You hear the word poser thrown around in multitude of subcultures, whether it's the alternative subculture, goth, punk, skateboarding, And it's used to define somebody who doesn't align with the core values or the aesthetic of the movement. They're just there to follow some trend or because it's cool or because they have something to gain from being a part of this, but they don't really align with the community of people there. So people feel like you're an imposter, you don't belong. We're already a group of people that don't belong in society. We don't need an imposter among us to divide and destroy what we built. So that is where like the feeling of being threatened comes from. A lot of alternative people, they hate trend hoppers, not just because they're using the goth subculture because they have something to gain from it, but because of a larger issue of how trends are just a part of capitalism. And the core values of the original punk movement is very anti-capitalist. And we don't want to feel like you're not validating your identity because you're not keeping up with the trends, and you're fake because you don't have a full closet of Dolls Kill or Kill Star or whatever, and you just have like your regular clothes and whatever like that. There's also a concern with the rise of AI. Lots of influencers, lots of companies are using AI models, AI influencers. They're using AI for a multitude of things, and our society has become way too reliant, way too fast on AI. And I don't know where we're going to go from here, but there is a concern about AI models, um, AI companies using AI models, AI influencers pushing toxic narratives to society on top of the people that are hopping on the trend to capitalize off a community that they just don't understand the values of, and they think that it is aesthetic based, and they're not really taking the time to really dive into what it actually is about. They just want to use it to capitalize off of it and move on. And that is why a lot of people are like upset about it because the goth subculture is already so misunderstood and hated. And to have people that aren't even goth come into it and represent goth, and they just rely on a bunch of stereotypes created to harm us, it causes real life suffering and discrimination and abuse in some instances that we work so hard to try and get away from. And a lot of people don't even feel comfortable existing as a goth alternative person in our society because of all the stigma, the hate, and the abuse. A lot of people force themselves to look relatively normal to avoid the stigma that comes with being alternative, even if it causes them to hate themselves, even to the point where they want to control alt delete because they don't get to show up authentically as themselves. And then you have people who aren't even truly alternative coming here and they're just hopping on the trend. They're just capitalizing off of something that has been made popular by a community of people that were against everything that it has turned into now. So a lot of people do feel upset about that because of the real life harms that it causes to people who are actually committed to being about presenting themselves as alternative despite all the hate, the abuse, the stigma, the discrimination that it can cause us in real life on top of already being marginalized. So I think that social media just highlights that and the threat of, someone being a poser and the harm that can cause when you don't like you're all in the Kool-Aid, but you don't even know the flavor. And yet you're teaching other people how to make Kool-Aid. But you don't even know what Kool-Aid is. Like I can understand the frustration that comes with that. And so I feel like that may explain why people get so upset and it causes such a vicious and strong reaction. So I do understand those frustrations, but I feel like you don't need to be on the internet cussing, fussing, and calling people out their names and picking apart their experience and picking apart their aesthetic because you're mad that they're capitalizing off of a trend based on a subculture that is about a community that you're a part of. Like, you don't actually have to be hateful because of it.
Just chill out. Drink a 7-Up, eat a moon pie, quit murdering people.
I understand that some people feel threatened by newcomers. Some people feel threatened by the younger generation coming in and changing everything because change is hard. You join a subculture because it has a sense of familiarity and comfort, and then you just see it turn into something that you don't even recognize anymore. So I do relate to that feeling a little bit, but I don't think that people deserve hate. I don't think that they deserve violence. I don't think that they deserve to be called out their names, and I don't think they deserve to be trolled. I don't think that they deserve to be on the experiencing end of actual hate. Like you can just be like, "Oh, this is annoying. Let me scroll. Oh, I don't like this content. Let me click uninterested. Oh, this is so annoying. I really hate to see this type of thing. Let me just block this person and every person I see posting stuff like this because I just don't want to see it." Like you can just block them. You can just click uninterested. You don't actually have to be hateful in response to this because, like, if you're a part of the subculture because you like the things that make up the subculture, then just go and enjoy those things. You don't have to be threatened by people who you feel like are misrepresenting and not fully understanding. You can just block those people. You can put the phone down and go find something else to do. You can go touch grass. You can go on an adventure, the zoo, the museum, a convention, a concert, something. You don't have to be so like laser focused on this one thing to the point where it turns you into a hateful person. So because people are so scared of the subculture changing and being misrepresented and the ignorance that comes with it is led to these toxic purity tests. And these purity tests are just like someone checking off a list of, do you fit into these standards, do you fit into these markers, and if you don't, then you don't belong, and therefore you deserve to be on the receiving end of hate and abuse and to be called names and to be kicked out of the subculture when, like, the only people that should be kicked out of the subculture are bigots. And if you don't like what someone posts on the internet, you can just block them. I don't think that it should have escalated to the point of actual hate. But that is my take on it, and that is how I personally feel. So, one thing that I've always hated about corporate work culture is constantly being measured against an invisible set of rules and expectations that you know nothing about, yet somehow you're failing and you're missing the mark of a set of lists that you don't even, like, you never even seen the list, like it doesn't exist. And I'm seeing some of the same things happen online with these so-called purity tests where people are basically saying, if you don't look like a copy and paste stereotypical alternative person, then you're not real. When the subculture is supposed to embrace people who matches up with those aesthetics or not, and it's supposed to be about celebrating diversity within that. There's plenty of people I've met throughout my lifetime that exist in alternative spaces, and they don't look anything like the people you see on the internet when you Google the word goth, goth subculture, goth people, goth girl, goth woman. A lot of those people aren't even on the internet. They don't even have Facebook accounts, let alone Instagram, Tumblr, Pinterest, or wherever you guys are getting your inspiration from. A lot of people that I've met throughout my lifetime who identify as either goth, punk, or alternative, they don't even meet the standards of today. And you guys are using this limited view of what it means to be alternative to measure people up against. And there's nothing to gain from that. But because the subculture has evolved on the internet, we have to deal with a new set of challenges: influencers and algorithms. Now, algorithms are catered towards every individual person based on the multitude of information that is on your phone and based on content that you actively engage in. I do sometimes see things that don't align with me. And I'm like, how did this get on my algorithm? How did this end up on my page? Why am I seeing this? Because maybe somebody in my circle shared it, liked, reposted, or whatever. Or maybe the algorithm changed and they're testing out new things. So that does occasionally happen, I'm not going to lie. But for the most part, algorithms are curated a very specific type of way. And in this day and age of influencers are creating content to cater towards the algorithm so that they can be rewarded by likes, comments, views, and engagement, which will then gain the attention of corporations that hire influencers to push out content. Because having a larger social media shows more value for the corporation because it shows that you have a bigger audience for your products to be seen by, and you can get more sales that way. But the problem with this is that when it comes to the context of the subculture, is that a lot of influencers are pushing a lot of toxic narratives to feed into the algorithm. And the corporations that hire them are specifically going after problematic people because that's what's trending and that is what's making money. And when capitalism becomes the center of the subculture, then a lot of the messaging gets lost and a lot of the intentions of posting on the internet kind of get muddied. And there is a rising concern of influencers within the space because a lot of people are starting to feel like, well, are you actually an alternative person using social media to connect with other like-minded and alternative people and share your love for being goth, being punk, being alternative or whatever? Or are you using this because it's trendy and you just want to capitalize on whatever's trendy? And you're going to do so at the expense of people who are actually alternative. So, like, that is a valid concern to have, and I would agree to a certain extent. But how I feel about other things is like, for certain tropes, is like, don't hate the player, hate the game. Criticize the corporations for hiring problematic influencers to represent their brand, and criticize the companies who curate certain aesthetics and images and push out negative or toxic programming for the internet, for the algorithm to be pushed out to vulnerable and naive, easily influenced people, which are mostly children and people with like different mental capabilities who don't understand nuance or media analysis or anything like that to understand the difference between what's real and what's fake and what's okay to do and what isn't. So there is a concern with how influencers and algorithms are now pushing this checklist that leads to purity tests, that leads to people feeling like they have to do the work of analyzing who's real and who's fake, and whether or not that is a threat to the subculture and a threat to curate it in their network because they don't have anything else going on in their lives. And this is their end all be all, and they poured so much time, money, and energy into it that they don't want anybody to take it from them. I don't think that anybody can do anything to take away being alternative from me. Nobody can do anything to take away my interest in music, my interest in makeup, my interest in fashion, my interest in jewelry, or the things that I authentically like, regardless of if it's trendy or not, regardless of if it gets stigmatized or not. Obviously, I'm not gonna dress a certain type of way to go into certain environments. Like, I'm not gonna dress goth to go to a job interview or to go work in a corporate environment or to go work in like a dental clinic, a medical clinic, or something like that. Like, I'm not gonna dress like I'm going to the club in order to go to a specific type of work environment for fear of not getting the job or being fired. I'm not going to dress goth and then go to like a sundown town and like a super conservative community where people can and most likely will violently attack me for the way I dress on top of my race and gender. Like, I'm not going to put myself in danger. And it sucks that I have to think about things like that when I'm showing up genuinely as my authentic self. Whereas other people, they get to just jump in, see it as trendy, capitalize off of it, and then once it's not cool anymore, they can move on to the next thing. And I still have to deal with the stigma. I still have to deal with the hate. I still have to deal with the abuse. I still have to deal with the threats of violence towards me. And I still have to deal with a lot of the negative tropes and misconceptions about being alternative that they may or may not have helped to push and curate because it was a thing to capitalize off at the time. So I do understand that type of frustration and why people are like, no, we need to start gatekeeping because people used to get beat up for being goth before Sophie Lancaster, and is not considered a protected class and is not considered a hate crime. And people don't care. If you are in school and you get beat up for being goth, then the teachers are going to be like, okay, well, that's what you get for being goth. If you're walking down the street and somebody attacks you because they don't like that you're wearing black lipstick and you tell the cops they attack me because they don't like what I'm wearing, the cops are just going to be like, okay, well, don't dress like that anymore then. So these things have real life harm and real life effects on people, especially people who are already marginalized. So I do understand the frustration, but I still don't think that it deserves hate. I think that you should just not engage in certain type of content. Like I do understand the frustration, especially when it comes to AI and everything, pushing out toxic narratives and tropes because that's the thing to capitalize off when there are real people who are really affected by these things. Like, and it's not just in terms of jobs because it's like I can choose to dress professional for a job interview to get the job and I will be just fine. I can choose to dress a certain type of way in order to go look for an apartment or a house to avoid being discriminated against in that way. Like I can choose to conform in order to avoid the discrimination, but I shouldn't have to. I should be able to just exist and trust that, yeah, people may not like the way that I look, but I'm not going to be attacked by it and I'm not going to be discriminated against by it. So I do understand the frustration with that. So, in conclusion, I feel like one, before calling someone a poser, analyze what your views of being alternative even are and what that even means to you. Because a lot of times, these boxes that you're trying to force other people to check is based on a very rigid view that has been curated by corporations to sell you things and make you feel like you're inadequate. And those people are not actively trying to harm you. They are just doing their job. They are just feeding into the algorithm. They're chasing clout. They're chasing brand deals. And those people are not actively trying to cause harm to you. And even if that type of content ceased to exist off the internet, the people who actively hate you and wish harm against you aren't gonna all of a sudden start respecting you. They aren't gonna start listening to goth music. They aren't gonna watch old interviews of goth bands. They aren't gonna read books about them. They're not gonna read like gothic literature to understand a lot of the musical influences and the visual effects of the videos to understand where that even comes from. They're not gonna do the work to try to intentionally understand and respect you because those people decide to disappear off the internet. So I understand there is a level of frustration, but I don't think that it deserves hate. Criticisms, side eye, blog, not interested, but hate is a very extreme, and I don't think that we should be projecting that, especially when a lot of people are really young. A lot of people, they may be children, they may have, different mental capabilities going on where they're not there all the way to properly understand things. So I don't know, practice kindness, be nice, and if you see something on the internet that is upsetting you, then go find something else to do. Take breaks from the internet, take breaks from social media, block people, click not interested, and go on with your life and don't be hateful to people.